Hi there, how's everybody doing?
I've just been to the dentist. I got a filling on this side of my mouth. So I just wanted to say that if I look really creepy when I'm talking, it's because it's currently getting the feeling back. So I'll try to remain normal.
It's such a strange feeling, isn't it?
At least you're not trying to play a wind instrument afterwards, I guess.
Right, yeah.
I can only imagine how difficult that would be. I can't even talk. Like, I tried to go to the store afterwards and wore my mask and was trying to talk to the cashier, and it's so bad. But anyways, I will try to remain as normal as possible. I'm also going to work on emailing all of you guys just kind of like some of the things that I talked about last week. I know that we've already had some sent out, but I'm going to use a little bit of the beginning to be doing that if everyone's cool with that.
Yeah, and we have Nicholas joining us this evening. He has it. This is his first time here. We need to make sure he's on our email list too. Um, if you don't have his, I can forward it to you. And I think we have. I've been texting. I think we have another student coming. She just asked me for the links. That's going to be new. So Nicholas, I've also got a link to recordings from the past 2 classes that we done. Or actually, I've only got one. The very first one, I kind of screwed up and didn't get it recorded right. But I'll send you a link to that too, so you'll have that first class that we did.
Thank you. That'd be great.
No problem. So maybe while we're waiting on more people to maybe join us, we can just kind of start with a review a little bit about what we did last time. The tune we kept working on was Boil Them Cabbage Down. Our very first class, we had learned to play the very first part, the A part, with just very solid back and forth bow strokes. And last week we worked a little bit on adding some more rhythm with the right hand bow. And we also learned the B part to the tune. And we talked about, you know, kind of developing your own practice habits and how to make your practice effective. We also worked a little bit on theory and scales. We worked mainly on the A major scale last time. And I emailed everybody earlier today a document that we'll kind of talk about. I've got a copy here that I can hold up to kind of help you understand how scales work and how just the basic of music theory and how you can translate it over to this instrument. So today, you know, I'd like to kind of break things up a little bit. We want to spend some time playing what we've already learned and also you know, talking about any questions we may have about that. And then we'll work a little bit on some theory and learn some more scales and positions. And then in the end, we'll wind up and try to add a new tune to learn. Does that sound good? Does anybody got any questions about anything before we start? Anything from last week? Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry
There you
about
go.
that.
Okay.
So on the B part, we were trying to figure out at what point do we change the bow stroke?
No, we got that. We
Well,
were just
no.
wondering what,
Do
okay.
you, when you have all 3 fingers and then and you're on a do.
That part.
So when you leave that, do you change the bow stroke for the last one, or do you try to incorporate all of those notes in one stroke? Or does it matter?
That part
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially you're going to get 2 notes with 1 down bow, and then you're going to switch direction. So
Okay.
Yep.
right.
Okay. Okay.
So the follow-up question to that is, so we practiced that, which is good. So we got that down, but it wasn't real natural feeling. So there must be a benefit to that later on down the road, doing that. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, when we learned the A part, we were able to just keep our bow pretty consistent.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so what we're doing here is adding some variations to that, you know, because there are times that it's good to have that good rhythm, but then ways to embellish notes and change your bow direction, right? So we're adding little techniques as we go along. You know,
Okay.
each part kind of incorporates something different to it.
Okay.
And today we'll work, you know, the tune that we're going to work on today has a lot of bowing across two strings back and forth. So that's kind of the technique that we're going to kind of incorporate and add to today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But yeah, it's a great question. Anybody else have anything before we jump into it? All right, so let's talk about, let's all, just to start, let's all just kind of get our instruments ready, get ourselves warmed up. So just remember, you want to set with your feet flat on the floor, set up pretty straight. We talked about how to hold our bow. Everybody have their bow hold down, what they're comfortable with, and just start pulling the bow across the strings and focus on. Last time we talked about when you bring the bow down, you want to bend your wrist away, and when you bring the bow up, you want to bend your wrist the other way, pull it back up. And this will help you keep your bow nice and straight, because if your wrist stays too rigid, or if it's bent one way or the other the whole time, as you're pulling across your bow, it's going to go across the strings at an angle, right? So that wrist, paying attention to that wrist motion is really important. So let's just go ahead and take some time, pull it across the strings. Focus on your wrist, try to get a good even tone. And after you do that a little bit, maybe incorporate a little more rhythm. Last time, for those of you that weren't here, we were focusing on what we refer to as the bum diddy rhythm. Bum diddy, bum diddy, bum diddy. So it's a long bow down, two short bows. So long, short, short, long, short, short. Alright, so you always want to spend just a little bit of time at the beginning doing that. Warming yourself up, pulling the bow across the strings, trying to get a good even tone. Try to keep your bow from bouncing. Think about the things that we talked about that are important. Your bow speed, your bow pressure, and your bow placement. If you practice in front of a mirror, you can look and make sure that you're keeping your bow straight as you're doing that. Good way to just get warmed up and ready to play. Whenever I'm practicing, I usually just like to start off, after I warm up a little bit, start off with something that I already know, something that's familiar to me, just to help get your fingers and your mind warmed up a little bit better and thinking in those terms. So let's jump in and all play Bull and Cabbage Down together. We'll play it real slow if some of you haven't really caught up yet. Just watch close. Try to follow along for now, and we can break it down a little bit more if you need to. We're going to start on our second finger, on our second string, on our A string. And I'll just play it real slow, and everybody just play along. How'd everybody do? Okay. Any part of it that you want me to slow down? For those of you that didn't see the B part last time, do you want me to play through that real slow? That'd be helpful. Because I saw some of you would stop when we get to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if you could do that. That would be great.
Yeah. So it's all going to start down on the E string. And what we're going to do is in one bow stroke down, we're going to go from our third finger back to our first. And then we're going to change the direction of our bow and play that string open. So. And then the next two notes are up on the A string, our second finger. So we repeat that little phrase twice. Well, actually we repeat it three times, but on the third time through, we end on our first finger on the A string. So. I guess that's actually 4 times. I said 3, but it's 3 times, and then the 4th time is on your first finger. Then to end the B part is very similar to our A part. So the next part, we go to our second finger, then 3, then we end it like we end the A part. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so next let's talk a little bit about some of the theory stuff that we talked about, a little bit more about some scales, and then we'll jump into learning a new tune. So last time we learned the A major scale, which we realized that if we start on our A string and we play all the patterns that we've already learned and boil them cabbage down, where we have our first finger here, we skip a space that's about the width of our finger and put our second finger, and then our third finger goes right beside of it, touching your second, touching your middle finger. So it's right. And if we just drop down to the next string and we follow that same pattern, that plays the whole A major scale, right? That's the positions for that whole scale in 1 octave on those strings. Now, and we talked a little bit about why that is. I sent everybody, Nicholas, I don't think this probably got sent to you, but I will send it out, which I'm pretty sure you understand a lot of this stuff, but so I sent out this chart that's got all these numbers and lines on it, right, that have all of the keys and all of the notes within that key, right? And if you were to look at the key of C, so across the bottom here, you have all the keys. Across the top here is what is considered the major scale formula. And at the top of that page, it says whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, right? Meaning that if you start on any note, follow that formula of steps and half steps, a whole step being when we have space between our fingers and a half step being when our fingers are together. start on any note, follow that formula, and you'll play the major scale in that key. So, if you were to look at the key of C, for instance, on this, and you follow that scale across, the notes that you get are no sharps or flats. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? The reason that is because we need to remember the rule that E and F and B and C are only a half step apart. So that's why in that key, following that formula, you get all of those notes with no sharps or flats in the middle. Does that make sense? And then, so the way it translates to this is that, first of all, we have all of our open strings as starting points, right? So right now we've already learned the key of A, which if you read across that, the notes that we get are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, right? That was all the notes that we played playing those positions. Those positions, those three positions that we have on each string, right? One thing to keep in mind is that when you're playing like that, your third finger will always match the pitch of the open string above it. So if you put your third finger on the A string and you bow the D string above it, both of those are D notes. And you can use that as a way to find your starting position. I like to find that third finger position, tune it against the open string above it. And that holds true for every string. So the third finger always matches the open string above it. Right? Just as a starting point in certain keys, right? I always like to find that point first. And then if you have to modify, because some keys your finger may go a half step higher, your third finger may go a half step higher. So you have to modify from that point. But I always like to find that point where that third finger matches the string above it. Can do it up there on the D string and it matches the G above it. The other thing to keep in mind that if you use your pinky after that, it's going to match the string below it. So you could play it as an open string, or you could use your pinky and it would be the same note. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's just kind of two easy rules for finding your positions, where your fingers could be at some starting point. That if you can use your, I like to, use that third finger to measure against the open string above it, and use that as a good place to just start when you're warming up and know, just know where that position is. You'll start to kind of feel it. It's almost like you start to feel a little groove there where your finger should go. So I had this new student just message me and is needing a link. Give me just a second. I'm going to forward that to her real quick. Ella, do you want to jump on and maybe play and let everybody just play along one time through while I'm doing this?
Absolutely. Okay. I'll go slow, and I'll count off from 4, or I'll do taters like we've talked about. So whoever wants to play along with me. And then if you're still feeling unsure about the second part and you just want to drop out and listen, and then we can maybe play it separately. If we need a little bit more time, we could do that too. So And I was thinking of a couple of things while we were playing that. Hopefully that went well for everybody. But one thing that maybe hasn't been vocalized but has kind of been like understood without saying is moving from that first part into that second part. You play one fewer note. I'm pretty sure, to go into that second, and I'll play what I'm talking about. So I'll start from the second rendition of the first part and then go into that and show you guys what I'm saying. So and then you start, and typically we would play like, but you take away one note, and like you might just hear this when you're playing, so honestly just play it however you're hearing it, how other people are playing it. But I've been noticing that you have to like drop the last one out, because what you would call the first note of the second part, that high A, it is that's like technically called like a pickup note. So you do like one fewer and then you're going in. And that was one thing I noticed. And you also probably noticed that I didn't play the small ornamentation that Nathan's been doing at the very end of like the A part type of thing. And so that's like a more simplified way. And I didn't realize we had changed it over to that. But of course, there's always different ways to play stuff in a jam setting. And so if that's something that you can maybe play a little bit faster and then work your way up to doing that ornamentation, that would be my advice.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. Yeah, and all those little ornaments and things like that, you know, that's how you really develop your own style, you know. And you know, that's why I always think it's important to first just learn the bare basic melody, and then figure out how you can play with the rhythm and add little ornaments to make it your own. And that's why listening is such an important part. You can learn just as much by just listening to fiddle tunes and trying to listen for little phrases that you can pick up from other people, and you kind of steal all these little parts from different people and can make it your own that way. So, you know, if you don't listen to a lot of fiddle music, that's a good thing to start doing. Just, you know, consume as much of it as you can, and think about it when you're listening to it. And you know, just try to visualize from what you know about the instrument. Try to visualize in your head where your fingers may be going, and you know, you'd be amazed at how much that alone can really help you learn. Okay, so let me go back to we were talking about our scales, and we were playing that A major scale. So the easy thing to do is, first of all, if we take those patterns that we already know on that A string, and we just move it across, and we start on the D string, that gives us a D major scale automatically. So does that make sense? So we're using the exact same patterns, only we're going to start on the third string, our D string, and just follow that pattern from there. Let me play through it one more time and everybody can play along. And in the key of D, what happens is our notes is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Does that make sense? So that alone gives you the power to be able to transpose tunes, especially easy tunes like we have already learned. All we got to do is move it over and play it on a different string, and it puts it in a different key. So in order to play Bull M Cabbage Down in the key of D, all you do is come up and start on your second finger on the D string and play everything the same way. And then, you know, the B part would then start on your A string. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? And then you can continue on by going on up to our G string. So if you start on the open G string, follow that same pattern. That gives you a G major scale. So by learning one pattern of fingerings, it allows us to play three different scales and three different keys, three different keys. And just taking that knowledge, we could play those tunes in those keys if we wanted to. So we could do Bull M Cabbage Down in G by starting on the second finger, or on second finger on the fourth string, the G string. Now, in all reality though, there are tunes that, you know, are kind of commonly played in certain keys, right? So playing Bull M Cabbage Down in that really low G octave, probably not, you know, but it's a good thing to be able to play, to understand how that works, and be able to apply it to different tunes, because you may always know Bull M Cabbage Down in A, but then you may go sit down in a jam and they decide to play it in D. So it's good to know where to start that way. That tune specifically, I think, could be, you know, it could be fitted for either A or D pretty well, I think. Any questions about that? And then, you know, from there, you know, we've started everything on open strings, but from there you can move into starting on a closed position string and following the same scale to find the other scales that are on the sheet, right? And I think what we'll do is just take a little bit of time each week and we'll learn some different scales. But for right now, we know how to play one octave of G, D, and A. So as we move along, we'll move into some of the other scales that have some different positions where we shift our fingers, you know, in terms of which ones we have together and which ones we have apart, right? And eventually we work towards learning those patterns that are specific to those keys. And in my head, I try to think of it as, you know, I start to think of it in those terms. When I have a key in my head, I automatically think which fingers are together and which ones are apart on what strings. To me, that's a good way to just start to get that in your head and understand. So today I want to move on and learn a new tune. This one, we're going to learn it in A, but this is another one that's very easy to transpose in different keys, and it's shortening bread. And this one's got a little bit new technique in that it's got a lot of rocking the bow back and forth between the A and the E string. But overall, it's not too bad. Now I'll play through it a few times, just get a feel for it. Okay. So let's all break it down into parts together. Just take it a few notes at a time. The challenge is with tunes like this, and kind of one reason I gave us two in the same key with some of the same fingerings, is being able to practice these tunes together and differentiate them in your head and not get your fingerings confused. But this one's going to start on that third finger E string, just like the B part of the last tune did. But so this is a good place to find that position by playing that open string above it too. So you find that starting note to try to get in tune with that first starting note, and that's going to be kind of, you know, our jumping off point. And if that's in tune, and then your other fingers are behind it in the positions that we're expecting, it's pretty easy to just lift your fingers to find the next note, right? So the first part is going to be that third note, then an open note, then a first, then another open note. So everybody try that. And this part, we're just, you know, our bow's just changing direction every note. Pretty normal, pretty standard. All right. Now we're going to repeat that, only this time we're going to hang on that first finger note. So it's going to go like this. Everybody try that. Sorry. Everybody got that part? Now the next half of it is we're going to do that same lick that we did at the very beginning. And then to end it, we're going to come up to our A string second finger. And we're going to walk from that to our first, back to open. So. Alright, now let's put all that together. So I'll play it real slow. 1, 2, ready. Do that again. Everybody got it? All right, so just like we talked about the form of tunes last time, the form of our last tune would be written as A, A, B, B, meaning that you repeat each part. And this is the same way. So you would repeat that part twice, and then the next part is where this kind of rocking back and forth with our bow motion comes in. So we're going to start the B part on the open A string. So we're going to play the open A string, then we're going to come down to the E string. We're going to play our first finger, then open, then close again. So it's like this. So kind of like the rhythm in the first part, we end the second time through that on we hold on that one note. So all right, let's all try that together one time. All right, the end of the phrase starts like that, but ends just like the end of the last part. So the last part of it goes like this. Then you come to your second finger, first. All that's on the A string. So there's a lot of going back and forth between the A and E string, which we haven't really done much of yet. Everybody understand that? Okay, so now let's try to put those parts together. Let's put the A and the B part together. I'll just play the whole thing through a couple times, real slow. So this will be that part in the video that you probably want to just fast forward to have to play along with, right? About the 45-minute mark, I think. Alright, so I'll play Taters, and then we'll jump into the tune, play it all together. How'd everybody do? All right, good, nice. So, you know, if you think about this tune, if you wanted to play it in a different key, all you do is start on a different third finger on a different string. So if we moved it over to D, right? Pretty simple to just move it over, and it's a good thing to do things like that to help your bowing too, to get more comfortable with bowing on the middle strings or the higher strings. To me, the higher strings are the easiest to bow. The lower strings are harder to me. It feels awkward. But doing tunes like this or playing scales on those lower strings will help you get used to that that feeling and that positioning of your bowing arm to find those strings. Remember last time we talked about when you're holding your bow, your elbow is in one position if you lay the bow on the A and E string. And if you move your elbow up just a little bit, then you got the D and A, then you move up a little bit more and you got the G and the D. So you've mainly got kind of three main elbow positions there. And using little simple tunes like this and playing them in those different keys can really help with bowing those other strings. You could start up here on the third finger on the D string and play this in G. You also might have noticed, and that we talked a little bit about this last time, as I played that, a lot of times I was bowing two strings at the same time, and that adds a little bit of harmony, makes it sound a little bit full. So as you're playing this tune, you may want to just start with bowing one string. But because of the instrument being laid out the way that it is, it's very easy to just bow both our A and E strings together, and then we're adding a little bit of harmony to make it sound bigger and fuller. And it's really nice because these three keys that we've already learned, A, D, and G, are really nice because they give themselves a lot of open strings when you're playing tunes in those keys. Which for a fiddle player can, open strings are your, that they should be in tune. As long as you have your instrument in tune, your open strings are going to be in tune. So, it's nice when you have keys that have a lot of open strings in it, because as we study keys, you'll find that some of these are what I call a closed position key, meaning that you have very few open strings. So it can be harder to get those harmony notes. But in these keys, and especially for these tunes that just are mainly played on two strings, it's pretty easy to add a little bit of harmony just by focusing on your bowing and keeping a good constant pressure on those strings. It can be a little bit challenging if your pressure isn't right. That's where you get a lot of the squeaks and squeals and things like that. So if you're getting those sort of sounds, take time to just set and just bow those strings. And remember that wrist motion coming up and down. Spend some time just to get, get a good even tone that way. Anybody got any questions? Ella, you got anything you want to add?
Not that I can think of about this particular tune. I think I was thinking of a lot of stuff when you were talking about just in general the importance of listening and how that can help create your own style or like learn other styles, because another thing about listening in old time is that not only is it a ton of listening to recordings, but just kind of listening to the music that's going on around you in a jam, like when you get to that point, because whenever I'm most challenged, what I'm able to fall back on is just listening and following. So like, and that's all your ear, of course. So that's the reason why I guess we're doing this all by ear. And it's really important because I mean, at this point in my life, if I enter a jam and I don't know what tune they're playing, sorry, uh, like listening is what's going to enable me to be in that jam. Also, I kept thinking about guitar players while we were talking about the scales, because I don't know how ever many of you like play a different instrument that relies mostly on chords and like backup parts in this, but that's going to be another thing that's going to clue you into like the scales or the sharp notes or the flat notes of whatever you're playing, because just in general we're all playing the same key, and if it doesn't sound right with guitar, then like you might not be lining up or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing I may take some time to do that will really help everybody is I could record some guitar rhythm tracks that you have to play along to, because playing along with another fiddle is fine, but it's very easy to play this solo and it be very inconsistent, right? So you can spend a lot of time playing a tune and you feel that you're really playing in time and you're doing everything right, and then when you sit down with other instruments, you find yourself getting behind or getting way too ahead. So I could take some time and try to just record the chords in different, maybe even in different keys, and we could send those out as audio files, and then you have something to play along with and another instrument to listen to, right, that's not doing the same thing that you're doing. And then that gives you a little bit of freedom. Once you're really you're playing in good time and everything, you can kind of experiment a little bit and develop your own style that way. Yeah, and listening, I can't you can't really say enough how important it is to listen to fiddle music and try to listen to it intently, even though it may sound really fast. Think of the little licks that you already know and try to listen for those and know when you hear them, things like that. It's how you really focus on listening. A very common, that's a very common lick in a lot of tunes. So if you're able to train your ears to listen to a different tune and hear that lick and know, oh, I know what that is, right? That's to me, that's how I approach learning a lot of tunes, is sit down and listen to it first and be like, okay, what do I already know that's somewhat similar? And then let's see if I can figure that part out and then go from there. It's all about building on concepts, I think. And right now we're lucky, we're kind of lucky in modern age of having access to music. You can find a lot of old time music now that not too many years ago you had to go dig up in libraries and archives and things, and dig up old reel-to-reel tapes and try to transfer them to listen to it. But now you have so much available to you. So and old time music is different around all regions of the country. So if you go look up shortening bread, you will find several versions of it, and half of them may not even be the same tune that we just played. It'll be completely different melody. And a lot of that has to do that in different regions of the country with this music being handed down through oral traditions. You know, somebody learned a tune and somebody else said, what do you call that? And they said, I call it shortening bread. Well, a little, you know, farther on down the road, that person may play a different tune and say, I call that shortening bread. And over time, I think what happened is that a lot of these, there you go. That's a great, Tony just said a great resource there for finding music. It's the Digital Library of Appalachia. So they have a lot of stuff. A lot of this stuff is very hard to find in that it was things that people just visited old fiddlers and turned a recorder on and had them play all their tunes. So, you know, it's things that aren't commercially available or weren't commercially recorded either.
Thanks, Nathan. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I learned about that years ago. There's a lot of field recordings that were done by John Harrod on there and a bunch of people that he knows. And you can find 10, 15, 20 versions of songs sometimes and see the differences of the way people play them. Sometimes they'll have good notes on there. It tells where those people were from, what counties they were. And, you know, John Haywood likes to talk a lot about differences between the way somebody plays something in Knott County versus Letcher County, things like that. So it's a great course.
And if you really dig into these things, and also, you know, there's a lot of the people's stories too, of them telling where they learned from. And if you dig in and kind of follow some of those pathways, you really do start to see connections where you'll find fiddlers who play a tune similar, and then you realize, oh, well, they learned it from each other. And but it also shows all the differences and the regional differences and different ways of even tuning the fiddle in different regions around the country. So there's a lot to be learned there. So, you know, spend a lot of time digging in, listening. That's a great source. There's a website called Slippery Hill that is pretty good source for a lot of old time music. If you ever want to come visit me in Moorhead, we have an archive there and a computer lab with all kinds of music you can come listen to too. It's just not available online. But you know, and as we go along, maybe I'll try to, you know, right now the two tunes that we've learned are kind of, you know, very basic versions of those. But as we go along, we'll pick a few tunes that are specific to certain people, maybe something regional, and also kind of explore some variations of different ways that people play the same tune. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Anybody have anything else they want to say before we go? Everybody good? I hear my dogs barking in the background. It's probably dinner time for them. All right. Well, I'll send out a recording, and me and Ella will send out some notes to everyone, and I'll see y'all next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you guys.
Good to see you.
Good to see you all.
Thank you. Good to see y'all.
Howdy.